My stepmother-in-law kidnapped, make-upped, and tried to steal my baby, and witnessing a suicide attempt. This isn't a story about family drama, it's a horror movie in real time. My stepmother-in-law, a seemingly sweet woman, developed an obsession so extreme that she saw my daughter as the child God truly answered her prayers with. That obsession led to broken boundaries, stolen property, and ultimately a chilling home invasion that ended with a desperate cry, 2 kitchen knives, and a trip to the psychiatric ward. You won't believe how this nightmare escalates, or what she tried to gift my friend. Stay until the end to hear the creepy details, and drop a comment below if you've ever had to go no contact with a family member.
My stepmother-in-law thinks my daughter is the child she never had, and now she's acting like she's the real mom instead of me. Read to you on Reddit by Panther Purple. Advice needed. Sorry, this is a little long. My stepmother-in-law is generally a lovely woman. She's kind, helpful, and sweet. But Lord, recently I want to strangle her. Background. My father-in-law married my stepmother-in-law when my husband was a teenager, so they've been together for quite a while now. She has had infertility issues in the past, and after countless failed IVF attempts, found out she couldn't have children. I think one of the benefits of marrying my father-in-law was that she would inherit 2 sons, even if they were close to being legal adults. I guess she knew one day they would have children and she'd be a grandmother. Now, this brings me to my issue. Before I gave birth to my daughter, I knew an influx of annoying crap was coming my way because there hadn't been a girl born into the family for a long time. But I definitely didn't think it would be this bad. When I was pregnant with my daughter, my stepmother-in-law bought me 4 big bags worth of clothes, despite my specific request for no one to buy me clothes, because A, she will grow out of them in a matter of weeks, so it's a waste of money, and B, my in-laws have a tendency to buy clothes that say things like, Grandma's #1 girl, Daddy's girl, etc. When I told my stepmother-in-law that I had learned my lesson last time and wouldn't even have people wait in the delivery room because of the crap storm that was the birth of my first child, a whole other story involving my stepmother-in-law versus my mother-in-law in a competition to outcry each other, she seemed to understand. She knows I have clear boundaries and has seen the repercussions when people overstep them with my mother-in-law. So instead of complaining to me, she said, "Oh, okay, I understand." But later, my father-in-law told me she cried herself to sleep every night for a week. I have a good relationship with my stepmother-in-law, so this did hurt me to hear, but at the same time, it felt like a guilt trip. I sat her down and told her this wasn't about her, and of course she'd be involved in my daughter's life just to hold off for a bit. She seemed to understand, but clearly she didn't, because the past year has been difficult, to say the least. This leads me to today. She constantly refers to my daughter as variations of her precious little girl, a common trend with my in-laws, to be honest. My mother even pointed out how weird it was. I walked in on her hovering over my daughter in her crib, saying, "You're the child I have prayed for, my little girl. God has truly answered my prayers." She tried to give my daughter a middle name because I got to give her first name. That's not how it works. The name she chose was the one she picked for the child she miscarried, so I was very creeped out. Probably one of the weirdest things she said, "She's so beautiful. She got that from you. It's a shame I always wanted to see my features on my child. Maybe we can say she has my eyes." I just looked at her like, what the F? When my daughter cries, this woman turns into Sandbolt himself, rushing to pick her up, saying, "Shh, I'm here now. You're okay. Nothing can hurt you." What was going to hurt her? Stepmother-in-law and the guilt trips. I'm very reluctant about my children sleeping over at other people's houses because they're still very young. But despite this, she still constantly asks, "Can I have your daughter over for the night?" I give a reason. No. What about next week? I give another reason. No. Now she makes passive-aggressive statements like, "I've set up a whole nursery and she hasn't even used it once, haha," creepily stares at me. I need some advice. I don't know how to handle this. Sometimes I'd rather she just be like my mother-in-law, just an upfront jerk, because I can deal with that. I just don't know how to deal with passive-aggressiveness. I get it, she didn't get to have children, and honestly, I feel for her. But that doesn't mean my daughter is going to be the baby she always wanted. However, she has been there for me and is honestly a sweet person overall. But ever since I had my daughter, she has become overbearing. My husband loves his dad and my stepmother-in-law. My husband's father-in-law can't bear to see her upset, so I know that if my husband and I tried to talk to her formally about it, I've told her on small occasions directly, she'll cry and guilt trip, maybe not even intentionally. I don't know how to handle weepy people. Any advice? Relevant commenter. I wanted to say, my grandmother loves me. She does. She can be such a lovely woman and she's always looked out for me in some way. I love my grandmother. She does the weeping thing a lot. She takes things personally. She cries at literally everything, good or bad. She cries, usually followed by a guilt trip about how she hurts, how upset she is, or how she wants XYZ. She does this because it works. It gets people to tiptoe around her. It gets her way every time. I don't believe she does this on purpose, not at all, but she subconsciously knows that crying will get her what she wants immediately, because that's how people have always reacted to her wailing. We grew up hearing, "Don't tell your grandmother, it'll kill her," or "She can't help it." This was really, really damaging to be around as a kid, and it still is. She continues to do this to me, and I'm the bad guy for making her cry. How, you ask? By being unwell. I made my grandmother cry because I happen to have depression. She cries when she sees me using a crutch for my pain, then tells me it's much better when I don't use one, as if I'm doing this on purpose somehow. What needs to happen is calling her out for it, because guilt is a powerful emotion and it's used to control you. My grandmother is not a bad person. She has just learned that her crying gets everyone to do what she wants, much like a tantruming child, and we actively work to stop children from having tantrums with timeouts and by telling them this is not acceptable behavior. We don't worry about telling off a child who arguably doesn't understand as much as an adult would. OP's response. Man, this sounds scarily similar to my SMIL. It's crazy because I completely shut things down with everyone else, but with her, I was softer in my approach. I guess I didn't realize that being sweet and innocent can be just as much of a manipulative tool as being evil and cruel.
The movie The Hand That Rocks the Cradle comes to mind when Rebecca de Mornay starts to breastfeed the baby and it rejects the mother. Though the circumstances are different and why the character started doing that. SMIL should not keep the children overnight for the creepy reasons you stated. She is trying to mark territory that isn't hers. Your children. What does dear husband think about this? What the F? That sounds insane. Honestly, I don't want my children to sleep over at anyone's house until they are in their teens. I didn't, and it did me a world of good. My friends have told me some traumatic stories. He's just as freaked out about it as I am, but we're also just confused about how to go about it because I'm sure his dad will just be like, "This is making SMIL upset." I want my father-in-law to understand that I'm worried about SMIL's mental health as well as my kids' well-being. Update, 2 days later. This post was getting really long, so I'm writing a separate post to finish the update. Yeah. Crap went down. I was going to wait until Friday when my stepmother-in-law, father-in-law, brother-in-law, his wife, and kids came over. My naive self thinking this was a take her to the side for a 5-minute chat situation. But you guys scared the hell out of me. More like talked sense into me with your comments. So I had to get my ducks in a row immediately. I have to say, the stories on this sub, some of which you've brought to my attention. Also, shout out to the person who linked the trailer to The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, the single most terrifying movie clip I've seen as a mother, are so beyond my spectrum and everything I know that it was hard to adjust, let alone come to the realization that this could be my situation. Okay, I'll give you a rundown of last night's events.
As soon as I saw my husband in the evening, I burst out crying. He just looked at me, shocked, because I rarely cry. So even if he didn't think the stepmother-in-law situation was bad before, he knew it must be if it was making me feel this way. I began by telling him everything. He had noticed things before, and I would occasionally tell him when I was on the brink of ripping my hair out over the crap my stepmother-in-law would do, but never in full detail, because when I see my husband, I want to have real conversations with him. It was like word vomit. I told him about the pet names, the constant holding, the running to get her before me, the clothes, all the crap through my pregnancy, the nursery, the constant whispering in my daughter's ear. God knows what she's saying. The photo album of my daughter. She takes pictures constantly and has already filled up a massive album. She has more photos than I do. The sad statements, the looks. Jesus, I forgot to mention the looks in my first post. When I'm holding my daughter, she gives me the weirdest look. It's a combination of sadness, creepiness, anger, and confusion. I finished by reading him a few of your comments. I highlighted what a lot of you said, that my stepmother-in-law never properly addressed or processed her grief, and it has manifested into an obsession with my daughter. Her unhealthy attachment to my daughter is not only damaging to both my daughter and my son, who will grow up noticing the different attention they receive from her. Everyone else treats them the same, but also to her own mental health. I made it clear that I do genuinely have love for my stepmother-in-law, but I'm scared this attachment is unhealthy and it's more serious than we both previously thought. I need both of us to talk to my stepmother-in-law and father-in-law because I'm afraid of where this could lead. He just sat there and listened to everything I said and read. The first thing he did was hug me, and for someone who doesn't cry, Lord, I think I cried for England in that moment. He started by saying he always knew she hadn't processed her grief properly, and told me about a few instances from when he was a teenager. Then he said, first things first, my dad needs to realize that his wife is his primary concern, and she needs help. My primary concern is you and the kids, and my dad needs to respect that. He said we should talk to them together, because his dad would most likely try to shut it down if he spoke to him separately. We made a whole plan to start from a place of concern rather than attack, slowly branching into our issues, outlining our rules and boundaries clearly and firmly. We would make it clear that we are not to be overridden, manipulated, influenced, or stomped over. Any breach of our boundaries would indicate that my stepmother-in-law doesn't respect our role as our daughter and son's parents, or as individuals, and, as with all violations, there would be repercussions. Then we'd circle back to our concerns about her mental health and her grief. My best friend, who's like a sister to me and is in the loop because we're very close, went through her own miscarriage a few years ago and went to therapy. She gave me the contact info for her therapist. We would offer emotional support as well. I made it clear to my husband that even if she agrees to respect our boundaries and acknowledges all the indirect ways she doesn't abide by them, I still want her to go to therapy. These issues won't just go away, and if she can't inflict them onto my daughter, she will only internalize them, which will cause her more inner conflict. I am genuinely concerned about her mental health. My husband agreed and said we'd outline that as a necessity. We had notes, we were on the same page, the kids were sleeping, and I had calmed down. Great! Then I got a text from my mother-in-law asking if she and my father-in-law could come over for dinner tomorrow. Today, instead, because Friday they had a meeting for some event at their church. Great.
My anxiety-ridden mind could face this sooner rather than having it drawn out until the end of the week. Everything was set. I had my husband's full support, and he'd be addressing everything with me. My stepmother-in-law is a rational woman. What could go wrong? The crap storm that was today shouts back everything. Second update. Same day. I just want to start off by saying this happened a few hours ago, so I'm still pretty overwhelmed. I know you guys are used to the craziness of mothers-in-law, but this level is still very new to me, so I'm still in a bit of shock. Please forgive me for any mistakes or errors. As I was getting ready in the morning, my hands were a little shaky, and it felt like someone had left a knife in my stomach. I think this was my body warning me that something was going to go down. The whole day at work dragged. Blah, but let's get to the point.
My stepmother-in-law and father-in-law live a 30-minute drive away, and they're always on time. I picked up the kids from the childminder, settled them down, and my husband came home. I started to prep dinner. Everything was set. We were planning to have the talk after dinner when the kids went down, just to make life easier. The doorbell rings. My husband gets it. They come in and greet everyone. My stepmother-in-law spots my daughter in my arms and makes a beeline toward me, putting her arms out. Stepmother-in-law, "My darling, you're getting so big. Come to Nana." I just looked at her and said, "Actually, can you help me in the kitchen?" and handed my kid to my husband. She looked a little taken aback, but she still came along and helped me out. It was dinner time. We're eating. She spends the dinner fussing, cooing, and generally devoting her time to my daughter, who is just making a mess. "Stepmother-in-law, your food is getting cold." Stepmother-in-law, baby voice, "It's fine. My princess is being a little fussy. She needs some attention, don't you?" Me, "She couldn't care less about you right now. She's enjoying her food. You should too." Stepmother-in-law, "Nonsense." Starts eating her food anyway. Shortly after the kids get put to bed, despite protests from my stepmother-in-law, I come downstairs to hear her talking to my husband and father-in-law, saying, "OP seems very short today. Is she okay?" I walk up and answer before my husband. "Actually, stepmother-in-law, we've been meaning to speak to you all." The color drained from her face. It was the creepiest thing. I was a bit taken aback, but I continued. I sat next to my husband, so we were across from my stepmother-in-law and father-in-law. Me, "I hope you don't take this as an attack, as we're greatly concerned about this situation. Since our daughter has come along, we've noticed you've changed from a warm and loving grandmother to our son to adopting a direct mother role with our daughter. We want to make it clear so there's no confusion. We're her parents, and that..." Weeping commences, right on cue. Me, I'll continue. "We have a clear set of boundaries that you have continually crossed, most likely unintentionally, but crossed nevertheless, so we want to redefine them so there is no further confusion. I am her mother. When she cries and I am 2 feet away from her, I don't appreciate you rushing past me to pick her up. Sometimes let her cry it out. If I don't go to pick her up, she isn't yours. Please stop referring to her as your little girl, your princess, or anything like that. You're her grandmother, a wonderful one, but please understand your role. The constant photographs? You can enjoy a moment with her without having to snap a picture. Just appreciate the moment. And please stop harassing me for FaceTime sessions when you've just seen her." My stepmother-in-law is getting visibly more upset. Husband, "Stepmother-in-law, I can see you're getting upset. And Dad, I know this is an issue for you, but you have to realize our primary concern is our children. And we're worried about stepmother-in-law. She has developed an unhealthy attachment to our daughter, and she needs to address the underlying issue, her grief. We know this is hard for you, but until you do, we don't feel comfortable with you being alone with her." This is what did it. She was weepy before, and my father-in-law was annoyed, but holy crap, this led to the explosion. She jumped up and shouted, "You can't take her away from me. All I have. I love that little girl. I would never do anything that would cause her harm. Why are you trying to keep me away from me, OP? I have done so much for you. I was the mother-in-law that husband's biological mother wasn't. And this is how you choose to repay me by taking away my little girl? I don't have issues. I couldn't have children. And God himself blessed me with a family of my own. And now you're trying to take her from me." She runs out of the room, shouting my daughter's name. We all just sat there, stunned. Never in my life did I think she was even capable of screeching that loud. And I don't think my father-in-law did either. I shot up and followed her, running past her to block her entry to the stairs. I was shouting for my husband. She was weeping. Lord knows why it was taking them so long. I just pushed my stepmother-in-law back and said, "You need to leave. Get the F out of my house. You're going to wake up my kids with your wailing." My voice was so firm and unfazed, even though I was in complete shock. She looked at me and collapsed, grabbing onto my feet, begging and still wailing. It was hard to understand her. My husband and father-in-law finally appeared and were just as shocked as I felt. It was written all over their faces. My husband walked over, unclasped her hands from my feet, and lifted her limp body. She grabbed his face and wept. "Please, I'll do whatever you want. I'll listen to your rules. Please don't take her away from me. She's my little girl." My husband looked at my father-in-law and said, "She needs help, more than what any of us can give her." My father-in-law finally snapped out of his trance and took my stepmother-in-law's hand, trying to calm her down and put her jacket on. She was still weeping as they opened the door. "Please, please, 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 OP, please." That was the last thing I heard before they got in the car and drove off. I ran up to check on the kids. They were both fast asleep. I walked back downstairs and just sat on the stairs. Then my husband walked over, sat down next to me, held my hand, and we sat there in silence for the next 5 minutes, mentally processing what had just happened. I called the childminder to let her know that she can't release the kids to anyone but me or my husband, because in the past, my father-in-law and stepmother-in-law had picked up the kids for me before, so she's familiar with them. We already have a security system, cameras and passcodes that only my husband and I know. I also emailed my boss, who happens to be my friend, to let her know I won't be in tomorrow. I doubt I'm going to get much sleep tonight. I'm pretty lost and stunned after all of this. Third update, 11 days later. A lot has happened. I wanted to write it up while it was still fresh, but it kept tumbling into a massive crap storm, so I've skipped out on details. You have all been so supportive, provided me with great advice, and checked up on me, so I want to thank you all. Apologies for any errors in advance. Everything was quiet for a few days. We hadn't heard from my stepmother-in-law or father-in-law directly, but my brother-in-law said his dad, father-in-law, was taking care of the situation, which I assumed meant my father-in-law was taking her to see a professional. My husband texted his dad saying that we were glad he was taking the much-needed steps to get my stepmother-in-law professional attention and that there was no shame in that. We are concerned for her well-being, but due to recent events, we'll be limiting our contact, and there is to be no contact with the children until we seek great improvement, though visits will still be supervised. We hope she's getting the help she needs and wish them luck. My father-in-law replied, "I understand and thank you." Cool. I took time off work because I was a little anxious, and we were in the process of hiring a nanny, not new, already pre-planned, but apart from the whirlwind that was the breakdown, I thought the situation was contained. This is where the narrator in my life says, she thought wrong. I didn't want to leave the house for Mother's Day, but my husband planned a whole day, so we agreed we'd celebrate it. I don't know why, but I felt a little guilty in the back of my mind. I couldn't help but think of my stepmother-in-law, whom we celebrate every year, and she was a mess. That morning, I laid out my makeup and went to have a shower. When I came back, several products were gone. I assumed it was stress, that I must have forgotten to put them out or misplaced them, so after looking for a while and not finding them, I just used different products in my spare brushes. It was odd, but not unlike me to misplace things, so whatever. We left. My husband, the kids, and I were having brunch at a restaurant 15 minutes from our house. It was fairly packed. It was a little chillier than I expected, so I thought I'd grab a jacket for my kids, and by the time I got back, the food would have arrived. So off I went. When I pulled up, I noticed the side door, where the recycling bin and outdoor bin are, but there's a window opening above. That, important, was slightly open. It's not a door that has a lock, so I assumed the wind must have opened it slightly, but still a little odd. I went to close the door and noticed a trash can had fallen over. Now that was odd. The wind couldn't have knocked it over. It was full. Now I was on edge, but I remained calm and cautious. I went to the front of the house, slowly unlocked the door with my keys, and closed the door behind me. My heart was racing. I was sure I was overreacting, but I had a terrible feeling. I walked up the stairs, past my son's room, secured the jacket, and up to my daughter's room. The sight I saw horrified me. My daughter's clothes were organized in rows on the floor, not folded, but laid out, outfits completed with shoes and accessories. There, sitting cross-legged on the floor, was my stepmother-in-law. I literally thought I was the one going crazy. I took out my phone to call my husband, and she grabbed my phone. No, we don't have to do that," she said with the effing creepiest grin. Now I was split. My heart was saying, screw this crap and start swinging. But my head was saying, she's unwell, vulnerable, and clearly unstable. Me, SMIL, you need to leave right now. You're not supposed to be here. We are no contact. SMIL, but it's Mother's Day. It's the day God meant for mothers and children. I should be with my baby. Me, I was done. She is not your daughter. I am her mother. She is my daughter. You're not even biologically related to her. I'm done with this crap. I snatched my phone back. I started to walk down the stairs to call my husband from downstairs, and this woman was sobbing behind me. I was so done. A bitch had run out of patience. I called my husband and told him. He wanted to drive back, but I didn't want him to bring the kids, so I told him to drop them off at my sister-in-law's house and then come. This woman was screaming over my shoulder. "OP, is that my husband? Is he bringing our daughter? I knew you'd come around. See, this was a misunderstanding. Babies are supposed to be with their mothers." And she starts laughing. Me, you're delusional. I can never let you be around them. You broke into my house. Who does that? I'm calling the police. SMIL, sobbing. You can't. We're family. I'm not doing anything wrong. You're trying to keep her from me. Half of me wanted to beat the sense into her, but the other half was so freaked out, I thought it would be better for the police to handle this crap. The phone was ringing as I said hello, and I turned back around. This woman had 2 kitchen knives, each one pointing at her temple. I have never felt more powerless and horrified. She was sobbing that she couldn't live in this world without her baby. I tried to speak calmly and slowly, not wanting to scare her, but hell, I was about to faint from horror. She was screaming and sobbing uncontrollably, saying she couldn't live in this world anymore. It was too painful, too evil. I was crying now, half because I was terrified, the other half because what she was saying was horrible. I was begging and pleading with her, but I knew the only thing that would get her to put down the knives was my daughter. I told her she couldn't do this. How would it affect our daughter without her grandmother here? She needs you. She started to whimper and dropped the knives. I picked them up. The police arrived. The rest of the day was a bit of a blur. I remember my husband, father-in-law, and brother-in-law arriving shortly after. I remember screaming at my father-in-law that he was weak and cowardly and that he needed to put her into a hospital where she could be properly evaluated. I felt bad for how I was just screaming at him, but that was one of the most terrifying moments I've ever witnessed. My stepmother-in-law was placed on psychiatric hold, and she's still in the hospital right now. Neither my husband nor I have visited her, but my sister-in-law told me that for the first day, she was screaming, "Just let me die," and crying for our daughter. It's been a week, but I was told she's made some improvement. I don't know how to feel. On one hand, I feel our relationship is permanently damaged. I feel guilty because I know she's unwell, but a part of me will always feel she's unpredictable and therefore unsafe to be around. I'm British, if you couldn't tell by my phrases or spellings, but I live in the US, met my husband in college, got married, and stayed, so I don't have any of my own family to lean on here. But we have an apartment in another state where my best friend happens to live, just a 10-minute drive away, so the kids and I are going there for a few weeks. We're also looking to move. This whole thing has been a trial, to say the least. Hopefully, this is the end of the madness. Relevant comments. Commenter, you need a restraining order ASAP, and I think moving would be in your best interest. I'm curious, where did your father-in-law think she was when she broke into your house? What steps had he taken before this to get her help? This is horrific. I can't imagine how scared you were. OP's response. He said she told him she was running errands when she was gone for a while and wasn't picking up her phone. He drove around looking for her instead of calling us because he didn't think we would want to hear about her. On the house camera footage, we saw on the cameras that she entered through the side entrance by climbing on top of the recycling bin and pushing open the window. I was surprised she fit. This was around 7:30. Our house is big, so I think she hid in the garage until we left. My kids have been sleeping in my room since the first breakdown. Looking back, she probably went to our daughter's room and saw she wasn't there. I doubt she went to my kids when my husband was feeding them, because they were watching a show and my son would have said her name, causing my husband to turn around. Fourth update, 11 days later. Hey guys, I'll give you a rundown of what's been going on. My stepmother-in-law is out of the hospital. From what I've heard from my sister-in-law, her delusions have stopped, but she's very depressed about the reality of her life and what's happened. She's now attending therapy. The restraining order was granted. We spoke to our lawyers, and the breaking and entering charges were a lot trickier than we thought. Honestly, we believe she needs mental help more than criminal correction, so we decided against pursuing them.
We have a completely new security system that covers the entire property. New locks, new passwords, everything was changed that day. The house was put up for sale. I'm sad about this because it's my dream house, but too much has happened and it's ruined it for us. Plus, my stepmother-in-law and father-in-law live a 20-minute drive away, way too close. The kids and I are temporarily staying in our apartment in another state. My stepmother-in-law has never been here, nor does she know the address. My friends have been really supportive, and my sister flew over. She's been great. Still, I gave a picture to the doorman of what she looks like, just in case. We finalized our will. We had already been working on this to ensure my father-in-law and stepmother-in-law will never be the guardians of our children. I just wanted to clarify something from my last post. I don't feel sorry for her in the sense of, oh, I'll forgive her, poor her, she's not a threat. It's more that this is an unfortunate situation, and it's a shame it had to end in no contact. Don't get me wrong, I felt sad initially, but not enough to place her needs above mine or my children's. If I'm being completely honest, even with the restraining order, I think she will still come for us. I doubt she cares about legal repercussions. My sister-in-law said it took some time, but she no longer seemed delusional, just depressed, and that she cries all day because she won't see us for a long time due to what she did. I can't take the risk of her being around my children, knowing what she is capable of. But they will no doubt try to guilt us into seeing them, especially with the birthdays coming up. Yeah, hell will freeze over before that happens. My father-in-law promised my stepmother-in-law that when she gets better, of course she'll get to see us. My brother-in-law stepped in and said that's not his decision, and we've made it clear that my stepmother-in-law won't be around our children for a long time. She cried. The flying monkeys have hit us full force. People from my stepmother-in-law's church called my husband, rambling about how terrible this situation is and that we shouldn't abandon her in her time of need, etc. He hung up. The pastor of the church met with my husband, and he was lovely. He said we were taking the right steps to ensure the safety of our children. We already have vacation plans booked, so we'll be out of the country for a few months. Unfortunately, we can't move out of the U.S. permanently. It isn't the right time for us, but we're definitely moving states. A fresh start is overdue. To top it off, my mother-in-law has returned from her travels in Timbuktu, harassing my husband for details and swooping in, trying to adopt the stable parental role and grandparent role. That's great. Also, I never found the missing makeup. I had to repurchase the products, which sucks because they're expensive as hell. Hey guys, I've gotten a few messages about an update, and frankly, you've been with me from the start of this whirlwind and have helped me a great deal. So here's an all-over-the-place update. I can't go into everything because it's draining, so I'll give you the highlights. Even so, this is likely to be long. I've decided to go with Naobi because the namesake is eerily appropriate. A month ago, my sister-in-law FaceTimed me. She was at Naobi's house, helping her clean, when she came across a suitcase. Intrigued, she opened it to find pieces of my clothing, shoes I hadn't seen in months, bras, gloves, and a bunch of random crap, including hair ties and perfume. When asked about it, Naobi said she used to take things of mine, no matter how insignificant. She claimed she wanted to make things more familiar for my daughter when she was here. When asked about my makeup, she said she couldn't remember if that was something she took, which is understandable since she was so out of it that day. So the mystery of the missing makeup remains unsolved, but it's still a whole lot of weirdness. For the first few weeks, my father-in-law bombarded my husband with calls and texts he never picked up. Turns out my father-in-law would call my husband anytime Naobi was having a hard time to try to convince us to let her have a FaceTime session with the kids. Our children adapted pretty well after our conversation with my son explaining why they wouldn't be seeing their grandparents. He hasn't really asked or struggled with not seeing my father-in-law or Naobi. Naobi is making steady mental progress. She's not delusional anymore, but she still has her own issues. I would be pretty proud of her if she weren't causing me so much crap. She and her church minions have convinced themselves that my actions are far too drastic and that I'm doing this to be spiteful, that I use this opportunity to isolate my husband and my children from their family. But this is all to be expected from someone like me, right? That I think I'm better than them. Literally all things they have said in the presence of my sister-in-law. They also tried to rewrite what happened, claiming I exaggerated and manipulated Naobi's unfortunate breakdown to create my own demented narrative. In a matter of weeks, she has managed to take away my son and beloved grandson, as well as my beautiful granddaughter. Every couple of weeks, I get calls from people asking if another rumor is true, including but not limited to that I cheated on my husband, that I convinced my husband to move so he wouldn't have to live in the same city as my lover, and our leaving had nothing to do with Naobi, but rather my own shortcomings, which I have supposedly tried to project onto her. Please laugh with me. When they found out we were moving, inevitable since one of her friends lives near us, they flipped out. The following conversation took place. Naobi, she's taking this too far. I understand I was in the wrong, but to move to another state, wait, is she planning on leaving for England? She can't do that. My brother-in-law, yeah, I don't think you have a say in that. Naobi, I'm still their grandmother. She can't do that. We're not planning to move to the UK anytime in the near future, if ever. It's just not right for us right now. But either way, she's not seeing my kids, so why would it matter? Fast forward, this Bleepy P and my equally unhinged father-in-law decided to take a lovely trip to visit London while they were in Europe. Haha, we'll go visit the Queen. Screw off, you psychopaths. Thanks to everyone being tight-lipped, we were in Asia on vacation, so she missed us. That didn't stop her from trying to call my sister, asking for her address to stop by and catch up. My sister gave her a stern talking to and pretty much said, I'm not as patient as my sister, call me again, and we're going to have big problems. We're heading back to the US, so I'm sure our return will invite another level of crap. Hey guys, I know an update about Naobi, or my stepmother-in-law who thinks my daughter is the child she never got to have, is overdue. An update on the craziness is pending, so I'll write that up and post it sometime this week. But this one is fairly short, and it's in the title. Some of you may remember that during Naobi's mental breakdown, she broke into my house, and mysteriously my makeup disappeared too, but no one ever spoke about it again. Well, a few weeks ago, I was in Old State, home, to finalize a few things and attend my good friend's engagement party. Naobi was good friends with said friend's mother, but after all of this kicked off, my friend saw what a mess I was. Her mother was actually the one who told me that Naobi had been telling people I had an affair, and that was the supposed reason I was moving. Well, my friend's mother was disgusted by her lies and cut her off. Naobi, however, still felt the need to congratulate my friend on her engagement and give her a basket of gifts. So I asked my friend what she got. She went upstairs and grabbed the basket. You guys, everything in that basket was a brand new version of everything I had owned that Naobi had stolen. The exact foundation that went missing, the bronzer, the lipstick, all my shades, which is crazy because my friend is pale, a lingerie set, hair ties, and perfume. To say we were creeped out is an understatement. I don't know if she did it to mess with me or what, but that's pretty damning evidence. You know what's funny? That is the least crazy thing that has happened in the past 2 months. And soon enough, you guys will be roped into the horror movie that is my life. Editor's note.
It has been nearly 7.5 years since I have posted the last update. She has never commented or posted ever again.
And that's where the story essentially ends, with a restraining order, a security system that cost more than my car, and us finally safe in a new state. The reality is, I feel guilty. I still genuinely feel for Naobi and the depth of her grief. But that doesn't change the fact that a part of me will always be terrified that she'll show up again. This whole nightmare taught me a brutal lesson. Sometimes protecting your peace means drawing the line, no matter how much someone cries. My main job is to keep my babies safe, and I will never apologize for doing what was necessary. If you've ever had to fight to protect your kids, or if you've had to make that agonizing decision to cut off a family member for your own safety, please share your story or a word of support in the comments below. It truly helps to know you're not alone.